Welcome back to On the Light. In this episode with Prashant Iyengar, he gives us a lot to consider about the proper approach to practice. And he gives us some insight into the difference between practice and sadhana. He discusses the importance of pranayama and the pranayamic aspect in asana. For the listeners, I have an advantage with all of these interviews on the podcast, especially in the episodes with Prashantji, because through the process of preparing the episodes to go out, I get to listen to them multiple times. Through that process, I pause the recording often and really contemplate what Sir is teaching us. As many of you know, Prashantji has a beautiful way of orchestrating the presentation of his teachings. If you don't already do so, I encourage you to listen to the orchestration again and again, the same way you would listen to a musical masterpiece. Without further ado, please enjoy this episode of On the Light. Hello, Prashant.
Hello. Well, we are all used to a condition that we learn, we teach what we learn, we teach what we practice. Is that right?
Yes.
All the teachers, they teach what they practice, they teach what they have learned. But it is important for all the students of Guruji to know his condition. What he practiced was not what he taught in the formative period. He was practicing for himself, for him to develop his yoga, explore his yoga, understand his yoga. So what he was practicing was one thing. But what he was teaching in formative periods of early 40s, late 40s, early 50s, late 50s, was not what he taught, what he practiced. None of the teachers will understand this today because we teach only what we practice, but that was not his case. So all Guruji students should understand this thing. Because he was teaching private tuitions, he was teaching customized teachings according to the requirements of his students who were patients. Guruji did not get students of yoga, but he was getting patients with some maladies, physical, psychological, mental, having some problem or the other. And he was devising the teachings suitable to them. So they were his students in worldly sense of the term. But he was not teaching them yoga for the simple reason that that is not what they wanted. Nobody came to him to learn yoga. Usually they had some problems, some maladies, some difficulties, some uh, psychological, mental, physical problems, diseases, and they wanted a cure for their problems. So he was teaching curative yoga for quite some time, and that cannot be called as teaching of yoga. While what he was practicing was altogether different. He was practicing for him to learn the subject of yoga. He was explorative, discoverative, experimental, and he was trying to practice classical yoga. Now, that is actually not to be called practice. And today, whether it is Indian mind or Occidental mind, they need to know difference between practice and sadhana. And We have big confusion between the two, but this is not the time. I'm not going to explain what is sadhana. It is a separate topic to be discussed. The point is, Guruji was doing his yoga. Guruji was practicing his yoga, which is by way of doing, observing, learning, studying, comprehending, experimenting, exploring, discovering. So what he was practicing was totally different thing than what he was teaching. So that's why he said, which people did not understand in proper perspective. He said, while I teach, I'm a scientist, and while I practice, I'm a philosopher. None of the students of Guruji try to understand what is meant by it. So for Guruji's practice, he required Patanjali as uh, what you call as a guiding force or a lighthouse. So he required Patanjali, he required uh, Swatmarama, he required Gheranda, he required sages. Now, when what we are teaching as Iyengar Yoga, it is sorry state of affairs that we have nothing to do with the sages and seers. We have nothing to do with Patanjali. We don't require Patanjali to teach our yoga. We don't require Swatmaram to teach our yoga. We don't require Gheranda to teach our yoga. We do not require Gorakshanath to teach our yoga. We do not require Yajnavalkya to teach our yoga. We do not require Vyasa to teach our yoga. But they were his uh, lighthouses. They were his guiding forces. As I said last time, we require Patanjali only for our invocation. And then we are done away with Patanjali. We don't need Patanjali while we are teaching. As a matter of fact, we require to have good knowledge of anatomy, physiology, or the pathies. And usually what is taught is a pathy of yoga, for which you must know anatomy, physiology, endocrinology. So you should know about anatomy, which one learns in medical science, medical college. And most of the teachers of Iyengar Yoga are looking at the science, medical science and anatomy physiology, which is portrayed in the texts of anatomy physiology. And all teachings are based on it. The skeletal-muscular system, the anatomical system, the cellular system, various systems of the systemic body, psychological system, mental system. Where is the Chaitic system? We don't need Chaitic system. It is not even in the reckoning. The Chitta, which is the eternal mind, which is the mind which is transmigrating mind, which has no birth, which has no death. We don't consider that mind. While Guruji was practicing, his practice was classical yoga, what I term as classical yoga. And his guiding forces were the texts of yoga, the yoga of the lore, yoga of the tradition, timeless tradition, and then his uh, practice, which was making him understand the yoga of the lore, wisdom of the lore. So it was altogether different subject that what he practiced and compared to what he taught. So while he was teaching, he was Mr. Iyengar in the beginning, and he had to teach like what do you call as trainer. because the yoga was quite physical. What he taught, the yoga was very physical. It was physical culture, physical cultural, and in physical culture, you required trainers. So he was more a trainer when it came to teaching of yoga. Patanjali and all those seers and sages and rishis and munis were kept in background while he was teaching his students who were ailing, had some maladies, had some difficulties, had some problems in the mundane world. They had problems, mundane problems. Nobody had spiritual problem. They all had mundane problems. They had all had pathological conditions, and they wanted solutions for their problems. So, in that sense, Guruji was not fortunate to be teaching the subject of yoga what he practiced. Imagine you are a school or college teacher, university teacher, and you have particular subject that you are specialized. If you are a graduate in physics, you will be teaching physics. You won't be teaching biology. You won't be teaching geography. You won't be teaching history. You won't be teaching sociology. So understand your condition that you are student of physics. You are a graduate of student of physics. Your educational pursuit is in physics, and you are made to teach geography. So I want students of Guruji to understand his plight. So what he practiced was totally different, and nobody really understood his statement. Nobody went into the depth of the statement when he said that. Uh, and then when he came to the West, let me tell you, when he came to the West, and there he wanted to teach yoga at some stage, if not right in the beginning, when he came for the first time, 54, for Yehudi Menuhin, Malkozinski, and some other musicians. 1956, he came to States to teach William Harkness. But later, he started, he wanted to put across the subject of yoga. But then he had a problem whether, imagine the West, the generation which was in 60s. You are almost 60 years, 65 years later today than when he started teaching in the West regularly. In 16s, he started teaching regular classes. He wanted to really introduce the subject of yoga. There were a few exceptions that they wanted to be having customized and devised yoga, remedial yoga, but not everyone was looking for remedial yoga. But Guruji had a difficulty whether the West of 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, whether they would take any esoteric aspects of yoga. Simple thing that he could not even tell them that in asanas exhale completely. Now, this is one of the very fundamental, very primary, very rudimentary aspect of yoga that any asana, you are supposed to exhale more and more and more and more. The generation at that time in the West uh, would not have paleted the instruction that you exhale more in Shirshasana, exhale more and more in Ardha Matsyendrasana, because breathing normally is something to be comfortable. The West had no idea of profound exhalation. It is totally different chemical compound. It is not just voluminous exhalation that you exhale 3 times and 4 times and 5 times the normal breathing, but it's a different chemical compound. But he could not push this to the audience in the West. So also the case in India. The non-Hindus who were his students in Pune and Mumbai, he could not put this because he thought they will not be piloting it. Now, this is a very basic aspect of esoteric yoga. Exhale completely, exhale in different ways, exhale in different asanas. It's not just exhaling. In different asanas to exhale more and more and more is a different proposal, which I have given the education today. Like exhale more and more in Supta Virasana, it is one kind of exhalation. Exhale more and more in Adhomukha Virasana, it's a different exhalation. Exhale more and more in Bharadwajasana, it's a different exhalation. Or Parshva Parivrutta Virasana, it's a different exhalation. It's not just volume of exhalation. It is a process of exhalation. But he could not bring that on surface. And let me tell you, Guruji used a trick so that the people will start exhaling more and more without his telling. Because if he told them, they might think it is dangerous. Exhaling more and more and more and more in the brain, in the abdomen, they would not be taking it. This is the generation of 1960s and 70s I'm talking about, not the generation of 1920s and now 25. Long way, we have gone a long way. A lot of water has flown under, but imagine Guruji's condition. So he used a trick. You know, he was a hard task master. Every student of Guruji who joined his classes, attended his classes, they all came to know that he is a hard task master. Now they thought it is physical culture to be doing intensively a posture. Now, to be doing intensively to satisfy Guruji's expectations, quite involuntarily, everyone exhaled unusual volume. So, without Guruji telling them, exhale more and more, which they would not have taken, because everyone wants to have comfortable breathing, normal breathing. A common man doesn't want to exhale more and more. So, Guruji, his intensity was such that very involuntarily, the students exhaled more and more and more and more, which they did not notice. They only saw that they are working hard. Also, they retained the breath after exhalation because of his very demanding, commanding um, position as a teacher. Everyone knows he was very demanding, and nobody could escape. Nobody could be um, mild in intensity. Everyone had to be in high intensity. Unknowingly, they started exhaling more and more, exhaling sharper and sharper, retaining as well after exhalation. Now, this is esoteric aspect of yoga, and Guruji told us that he could not be telling them. That's why he insisted, breathe normally, breathe normally, breathe normally, breathe normally. But the way he taught, people invariably exhaled voluntarily more and more. That was quite obvious in front of Guruji's, the radiation that came from Guruji, nobody could be casual. And it was very natural. Guruji told us that the chemical changes were initialized without telling them to exhale more and more. Now you listen to any of my classes. I explicitly say that you exhale more and more and more. I tell you to exhale sharper and sharper and sharper, hypernormal sharper, hypernormal normal, and hyponormal deeper. Because now I can be saying that. I can be telling you how to exhale. I can be telling you about all those. I can say exhale in the brain. Guruji could not say this to them. They thought this is dabbling with the brain. Please try to imagine the generations of 1960s and 70s. Maybe some of you, your grandparents. So the West had no idea about profound exhalation and complete exhalation. They thought it is proper to exhale normally, comfortably, and easily. Guruji, in a difficult contortion, put you where the breathing could not be normal. A difficult contortion like Ekapada Shirshasan, Vipada Shirshasan, forward bends, not Shirshasan variation, Yoga Nidrasan. Imagine Yoga Nidrasan, and when you are struggling to do Yoga Nidrasan, find out what you will do with the breath. When you are comfortable in Yoga Nidrasan, there is a different thing. But when you are learning to do Yoga Nidrasan, so he made them use the breath without referring to breath, because he said he could not refer to breath because they are afraid of heart, they were afraid of brain. So this is the trick that he used. His intensity. I cannot be so intense as much as Guruji was. That was his nature, to be aggressive, to be intimidating, to be commanding, to be demanding. And that's not my nature. So if I were in his place, I would have not been in a position to make them exhale more and more and more. But in his presence, in his class, everyone exhaled unusual. Everyone exhaled voluntarily, involuntarily, and customized because of the posture. A deeper exhalation of Shirshasan is different than deeper exhalation of Shavasana. You need to have this education. A deeper exhalation of Shirshasan is different than deeper exhalation of Janu Shirshasan. So whereas I started formalizing to teach this and put it across, it is because of Guruji gave me the ladder. He was on the first rung of the ladder, therefore he could not say so many things. Now I quite explicitly say exhale and retain and do the Uddiyana. The Westerners of that time, or even Indians, not the Indians who were uh, not at all in yoga, they would not venture to do the abdominal suction and contraction. Westerners definitely were having all reservations and they are afraid. If he had told them, do Udyan in any of the asana, they would have said goodbye. This is an intervention with the organic system. So the West was not prepared for so many things for which today the West is prepared. Even the Indians today are prepared. So we started educating them so that we could say that certain things very expressly, explicitly, openly. So a lot of uh, spade work was done to make them do certain things. While the whole West is brainwashed, Iyengar yoga, breathe normally, breathe normally, breathe normally, breathe normally. As if something is going to happen if they don't breathe normally. And I have made fun of this. No one can ever breathe normally. There is nothing like normal breathing. When somebody is not normal at all, none of us are normal. So when we are not normal, the normal breathing is not possible. And if at all the so-called normal breathing is done, it won't be of any avail. So Guruji could not refer to breath for quite so many years, and then what happened is that the West, post light on yoga, Guruji thought of propagating the yoga through the light on yoga and the scheme with which light on yoga was written. So light on yoga was almost Bible for Iyengar system in 60s and 70s, 80s. And that's why it came to know as Bible of Iyengar Yoga. Because the courses were devised based on light on yoga. He penned down light on yoga for those who cannot have good teachers. So as a replacement to bad teachers, he gave light on yoga. Now that itself became a textbook of Iyengar Yoga, which now retrospectively, if I see, it's a sorry state of affairs. It is sorry state of affairs if light on yoga is Magnumopus, which was actually penned down for one to learn yoga on oneself because teachers of yoga were not available in 1950s, 1960s, and 70s. Now, uh, teachers of yoga have mushroomed all over the world. Every street, every nook and corner, every street and small street, you have a board, a teacher of yoga. Now, this was not the case in 60s and 70s. And therefore, Guruji wrote a book, penned down a book, which would be an alternative to a bad teacher. I want the Iyengar students to ponder over this. Guruji, umpteen number of times declared it's a alternative to not a good teacher or a bad teacher. Now that became magnum opus. So something seriously went wrong. I am sorry to say this. And then the Westerners, they were fascinated by the yoga that was taught to them, which was primarily physical culture. So it was good for youngsters. It was good for physical culturists. So it was looked at as an alternative to physical culture, which the Western world had. So the Western world had so many kind of physical cultural systems. So he wanted to propagate yoga post light on yoga. And he thought that that is the best way to propagate yoga to the West because he will be going to West for a month or so, and he thought of training the teachers. And most of for the Western culture is such. It is their culture to help others. I should be helpful to others. Whatever I learn, I should impart. I should teach. And the West was more inclined to teaching, and therefore they had appeal for Guruji's course, the devising of the course, teachers training course. Now again, that was a break for Guruji because he had just now commenced to make them indirectly adhere to certain processes of yoga, and such as one of the most important fundamental, as I said a while ago, it is a profound exhalation, customized exhalation, voluminous exhalation in different asanas. Now that had to be put onto back burner because now he had to teach for them to become teachers. Most of them wanted to become teachers, and therefore, again, there was a caution for him to take into consideration. So again, he suspended that. So he started teaching how to teach as physical culture, how to teach remedial yoga, how to teach postural yoga, and therefore his intention to slowly introduce the subject of yoga got onto back burner because he had to train teachers. And the teachers are going to be teaching novices, newcomers, and therefore he started giving them remedial yoga, postural yoga, exercise yoga, physical cultural yoga, physical well-being yoga, physical wellness yoga, psychological wellness yoga. So again, it changed. He could not proceed. It is because of this advent of light on yoga. Light on yoga opened out a portal for teachers training because it was so written that a course could be devised, and that was done. The course for teachers to be teaching their students. And again, what became important is to propagate yoga. So the Westerners would be teaching Westerners, and therefore, again, those things what are not palatable cannot be conveyed. So breathe normally, work hard. So the typical Iyengar yoga signature condition of working hard, working seriously, etc., gained importance, and Guruji could not do any further work in esoterics of yoga. Now let me tell you here at this stage, an aspect of asana is completely eclipsed if you have not ventured into pranayama. Only taking some steps in pranayama will open out huge spectrum and portal for asanas. Iyengar students got the impression that Iyengar yoga is primarily asana, and still Iyengar yoga means asanic yoga. This is sorry state of affairs. Iyengar yoga is asanic yoga. Iyengar yoga is a postural yoga. Many of the Iyengar teachers are not giving importance to pranayama at all, and not opening the portal of pranayama. Certain aspects of asanas are veiled, eclipsed. For posture, it doesn't matter. If asanas are postures, pranayam may not come there. But certain pranayamic principles, pranayamic practices are so important. While in Guruji's practices, he invariably gave significant time for pranayam in the mornings before he did asanas. But the whole Iyengar community thought Iyengar yoga is postural yoga because they saw him practicing postures in the hall. Nobody ever asked him, what is your pranayam? Do you do pranayam? The role of pranayam contributed a lot in his asanas. Now, let me tell you the esoteric here. Pranayam means it is samantrak, amantrak. If you are not aware, please look into the book which I penned down. What is samantrak pranayam? What is amantrak pranayam? So he was doing samantrak pranayam, samantrak pranayam, and then he understood that there is also samantrak pranayamic aspects in asanas. Because he came from Orthodox family. He came from Orthodox family, and he was familiar with certain mantras, being a Brahmin. And mantra was an aspect of daily practice for him. Most of you today know the Gayatri mantra. Gayatri mantra is not just for chanting or mentally reciting. Gayatri mantra comes in pranayama. Gayatri mantra comes in asana which is studied with pranayam. And unfortunately, in Iyengar system that we have today, the pranayam is totally at background. It is not related to asana at all, and it is very titular. If any of the Iyengar teachers are teaching pranayam, it is nominal, titular. It's a formality that they teach pranayam. But primarily, Iyengar yoga is postural yoga. We need to correct this. We need to reform this radically. Otherwise, we will continue to misguide the people about the so-called Iyengar yoga, which is postural yoga. Because Guruji was doing pranayam with equal priority as much as he gave to asanas, his asanas, when he did for himself, had a totally different technology to be applied, which he could not teach. He did not teach one single mantra to foreigners, to Indians, to his students. Which mantra has come in his teachings? Tell me. He could not teach because most of his students in India were non-Hindus or, if I may say so, secular Indians. Hope you understand what is meant by secular Indians. While he was practicing, he was not secular. He was liberally using all those. He was using Yoga Sutras for his asanas. Yoga Sutras were working as a drone instrument for his asanas, which people do not know. So he will see there, most of the students of Iyengar Guruji system are not still familiar with the relationship between asana and pranayam. They have made it watertight compartment. Pranayam, 10, 15 minutes, half an hour, over. Then asana. There is no relationship between asana and pranayam, asana and pranayamic techniques, technology of pranayam, technology of asana, nowhere related. This is not right. That's why I said if it is Iyengar's yoga, pranayamic principles did contribute significantly. In his asana, the pranayam did come. Now, then while he was, his practice was not practice. His practice was sadhana, for which there is no English word. Now it will be a separate issue for us to discuss what is really sadhana. So he was doing his yoga sadhana while he was teaching consumer yoga for the world. Good for you, helpful for you, betterment, your betterment. It's good for your betterment. It is good for your well-being. It's good for your wellness. You will feel fine. So he was catering consumer yoga. He did not get the opportunity to really teach the subject of yoga. That's why I've said many times, I've said that in the book, he was unfortunate yogacharya. He could not really teach yoga. Not because students did not qualify, but then later the students wanted to become teachers, and that's the case in India as well today. The students come and learn in the institute, they want to become teachers. This is a sorry state of affairs. Something, the blame should be going to us as well. We are to be blamed if that has happened. So Guruji was doing his sadhana, and the sadhana has a different ethos, different culture, different chemistry, different background, different foundation. White yoga as postural yoga doesn't need it. Because I got mounted on Guruji's shoulders, I slowly started bringing certain aspects. And that's why the whole world, Guruji's seniority students, had a grudge on me that I teach differently. Basically, I was teaching differently. I concede it. But why I was teaching differently, how I was teaching differently was a different thing than the basis that I had to say the same thing. I was teaching the subject of yoga. I was not turning out teachers. In my 55 years of teaching, I have not turned out one single teacher because I am not here to turn out teachers. I am here to teach the subject of yoga. Guruji had to turn out teachers. Guruji had to turn out teachers who are super teachers. All senior Iyengar teachers are called super teachers who are teaching for 40 plus years. They are super teachers and they train teachers. So that's how they have understood Iyengar Yoga. Iyengar Yoga is to turn out teachers on one hand, or help needy people, suffering people, give them wellness, give them well-being, either cater consumer yoga or teach yoga for trainees who should become trainers, who should become teachers. While that was not my goal in life, and it is not my cup of tea, because I myself, I'm a student of yoga. Being a student of yoga, I don't want to become a teacher of yoga, and definitely not teacher of the teachers. So I'm neither a teacher of yoga, nor I'm teacher of the teachers, nor I'm teacher of the teachers of the teacher of the teacher of the teachers, which is the case of all senior Iyengar teachers. They will proudly say they have turned out second generation, third generation of teachers. Well, in that case, I'm totally a barren person. I don't have any offspring to say, this is my teacher, this is my trained teacher. I have not trained anyone. I will never train anyone. That is not my cup of tea. Therefore, I am different. Guruji had to train teachers. Therefore, his cup of tea was different. So my yoga is based on what Guruji practiced. And while the whole world who is following Guruji are following what he taught, their teachings are based on Guruji's teachings. While my teachings are based on Guruji's practices. And practice is not the proper term, because yoga is not a matter of practice. Yoga is a matter of sadhana. So today I will just give a slight clue, because I cannot keep you a worm in your brain that you are not clear about practice and sadhana. See, what do you practice? Why will you practice? What will you practice? You will practice what you want, what you like. Will you ever practice what you don't like? I don't like music, but will I practice music? I must like it. So to practice, you must like what you practice. You cannot be not liking what you practice. While sadhana is not something that you should like and you do. Sadhana is something that you must do because you are a student of the subject. So sadhana has totally different implications. It is not practice. The whole world, the students particularly, which really hurts me, they say Guruji was practicing throughout, practicing 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours. He was not practicing. You will only practice what you like. You will not practice what you are bound to be doing. The sadhana is based on what is what you call the tradition will make you do certain things. It doesn't consider whether you like it or you don't like it. You must do it. So The tradition will enjoin certain things for a seeker to practice. That is sadhana. It doesn't depend upon I like it and I do it. As a matter of fact, if you like and if you do yoga, it's not yoga at all. Because you are taking recourse to pleasure, delight, attachment. So you will practice where you have attachment. Why do you practice when you don't have attachment? Say, for instance, somebody doesn't like music, is not disposed to music, doesn't like even to hear music, doesn't tolerate music, classical music. Why will someone practice classical music? Tell me. You must like it. So all the world today, Iyengar students particularly, they want to practice yoga, they want to keep their practice, they want to see, don't want to miss their practice, and they think practice is the means of yoga. Practice is antagonizer of yoga, because practice is all that you like it. And if you are entertaining likes and dislikes, that is not yoga. That's the ethos of yoga. So Guruji was not doing yoga because he liked yoga. He thought it is duty of him to be doing yoga. He was not looking for likes and dislikes. Well, all the practitioners who practice yoga, they will always practice what they like. Why will they practice what they don't like? Or what? Why will they practice something that they hate? Why will they practice something they think it is not good for them? So the moment I think this is not good for me, I will not practice. Now, this is empirical I which thinks this is not good for me, therefore I practice. And then empirical I says this is good for me, therefore I practice. It can be misleading. Empirical I is not the one which is going to decide, which should decide, I like, I don't like. So whether you practice or you don't practice will depend upon whether you like or you don't like. Who is that in you who will like or dislike? It is your empirical I. Empirical like is I should not be entertained in yoga. That's why in one of the classes, it is also on YouTube, the major alien of yoga is the pronoun I. And it is the pronoun I which has likes or dislikes, loves or loathes. So you must love what you are going to practice. You must like what you are going to practice. In that case, it won't be yoga. Please take it in right spirits. So practice is not the means of yoga, because you'll always practice what you like and what you think is good for you. Why will I practice once I know that this is not good for me? Why will I practice? Tell me. So the one who decides is vulnerable to misjudge. And therefore, it should not be the judge that this is good for me, this is not good for me. So the tradition of yoga enjoined certain practices, and he said, you must do it. Don't bother about whether you like it or you don't like it. That is our culture. So we will not determine by our empirical faculty, this is good for me, and therefore I will do it. I like it, therefore I'll do it. I don't like it, therefore I won't do it. Many times you have to do. If you understand dynamics of life, many things you have to do in life which you don't like. You are bound to do certain things which you don't like. You can't refuse, I won't do because I don't like it. In that case, you have not understood dynamics of life. So these were enjoined. Sadhana is enjoined by the tradition, by the text. And Guruji was going by those things, what was enjoined by the tradition and scriptural tradition. He did not look for whether I like it or not. And in yoga, you should be in neutral mind, not at all gravitating towards your likes and dislikes, and then you should be doing it. If you do yoga because you like it, then it won't be yoga. You have to first say that you get the neutrality in your mind, and you're free from likes and dislikes, gravities of them, the pulls and pushes of them, and then the essential yoga will start. That is sadhana. Sadhana is not what you like and then you do. Practice is always what you like, you practice. So Guruji was not practicing. Please understand what is the idea and concept of sadhana. I won't go into details of it because that is not the subject matter today. So I was a different teacher because I am through and through a student of yoga. I want to be student of yoga. I don't want to be teacher of yoga. I am not being a teacher of teachers. And that's why I don't have, so I am without a legacy. I am not bothered about a legacy that I should turn out. I will turn out legacy to the students of yoga, not the teachers yoga, not the professional yoga. I want all of you to be students of yoga. When I say all, I expect 1 or 2% at the most. I cannot expect more than that. That is more than enough. If even 1% or 0.01% understand the importance to be students of yoga, I have succeeded in my endeavor. I don't expect 80%, 90%, just 0.01% or 0.1%. They should be convinced that to be student of yoga is really the track of yoga. To be a teacher of yoga, you have derailed yourself and you can never be a practitioner of yoga if you are a teacher of yoga. If you are a teacher of yoga, you are a teacher of the individuals. You have to cater their needs. You have to convince them this is good and you will have to make them good. I can't teach you, say, telling you this is not a good thing, but you do it. You will say, why should I do it? So we'll have to convince them that this is good. So we'll have to only teach those things to where we can convince this is good. Then only they will pursue. If I say it is going to be futile, why will you do it? If it is going to be useless, why will you practice? So can I teach useless yoga to you? No. I have to teach useful yoga to you. And therefore, I have not become teacher. And Guruji was forced to become a teacher. He was by default a yogacharya to be turning out teachers. So he was super teacher because he turned out students who became teachers, students who became teachers, students who became teachers. So that was his mission in life. While that was not my mission in life. But I want you to understand, Guruji, when he was practicing, he was not practicing what he was teaching. He did not walk the talk the walk. I don't know how many of you understood in right perspective when I have said this often. Usually we appreciate a person who walks the talk and talks the walk. We say, I did. Wonderful. He never did that. What he was practicing was not practice. What he was practicing was sadhana. Therefore, he says, it is my dharma. It is my dharma to be doing yoga, which was in no way related to what he taught. Because he wanted to teach the way whereby his students will be able to become teachers. And that's how yoga can be propagated. His mission in life was to propagate yoga. And that was not my mission in yoga. Anyway, please ponder over this and please understand certain highlight aspects of the session today. Guruji was doing yoga sadhana. He taught people to practice yoga because unless they practice, they can't teach. Because you should practice, you should preach what you practice. So he gave them the yoga which they can practice and practice and practice. Therefore, they can become teachers of our time. Our time teachers only need to practice yoga keep regularly practicing yoga. Many of them even don't practice. Still, they are teachers. See, they are senior citizens. They are plus 70, plus 80. They can't practice, yet they can teach. But they will teach what they should practice. I don't teach in my class what you should practice. I teach in my class what you should learn, what you should study. So I teach the studious yoga for studiousness or to learn yoga, learnology. I don't teach anything for teachology. Guruji had to teach teachological yoga because he wanted people to teach yoga, because that's the way to propagate. That was the way to propagate. So I want this to be also brought in an interactive session so that more things can come out of what I have said today.
Okay.
Okay, I think that should be enough for the day.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you for listening to this episode of On the Light. Today, I want to end by reading a short passage from page 73 of Light on Life. It is impossible, when we turn our attention to the inner movement of breath, to use our senses externally at the same time. You cannot also be thinking that you must stop at the supermarket on the way home after work. Pranayama is the beginning of withdrawal from the external engagement of the mind and senses. That is why it brings peacefulness. It is the hinge between extroversion and introversion. If you've been enjoying On the Light and would like to support the podcast, consider making a small monthly donation. Your support helps cover production costs and allows me to continue sharing meaningful conversations like this one. Every contribution, no matter the size, makes a difference, and I'm truly grateful for your support. You can find the donation link in the show notes. Thank you for listening. Namaskar.